Welcome to the electoral college game. To get started, you need 4 players who will divide into 2 teams that consist of a presidential and a vice presidential candidate. Each team can roll dice to see who will be the presidential candidate. To begin the game, you will need the game board, 4 red dice, 4 blue dice, and each player will receive 20 volunteer game pieces. Getting started. Step 1. Determine which president will go first by rolling 1 die each. The highest number rolled will go first. Step 2. The president that won the die roll will place their 20 political volunteers on the map in the states that they would like to control. Rule 1 about placing volunteers. The states you choose to place your volunteers in electoral college votes must add up to 25. Rule 2. You have to place a minimum of 2 volunteers in each state. Step 3, getting started. The vice president for the same team will place their 20 political volunteers on the map. Follow the same rules from Step 2. Step 4. The president and vice president for the other team will place their 20 volunteers each, following the rules from Step 2. The last step for getting started. At the end of each of your turns, you will place your team marker on the Electoral College tracker to monitor your combined presidential and vice presidential totals from the states you control. After the first turn, you should have 50 for each team. Playing the game. The object of this game is to gather a minimum of 270 electoral college votes to win the presidency. Remember, the president and vice president will campaign separately, but they will add together their electoral college votes from the states that they both control. You can control the state by having the most volunteers in that state. During each turn, each player completes the following tasks in this order. The first task is to draw a vote card. The second task is to place your 5 new volunteers on the states that support your presidency. The third task, you may choose to campaign. After task 2, you can campaign by stealing electoral college votes from your opponent through a dice roll contest. Step 4. Track the electoral votes for your team on the Electoral College vote tracking sheet. Task details. For task 1, at the beginning of each turn, you will draw a vote card from the election news pile. Read the card to yourself. Be careful, some cards will be negative and you will have to use them right away. Other cards can be held to play later. Once a card is used, place it in the discard pile. Task 2, placing your volunteers. You will get 5 volunteers at the beginning of each turn. Place them in the states that you have volunteers in or in empty states. Task 3, campaigning. At this point, you may choose to campaign by stealing the electoral college votes that your opponent controls through a dice roll contest. You can do this by challenging them to a debate. If you debate, you will move 4 more players at once to the chosen state if you win the dice roll. In a media campaign battle, through TV ads, local TV station interviews, and mailings, you will be able to move 3 volunteers if you win. If you choose to have a social media battle with your opponent, you can then move 2 volunteers into the state you were trying to win if you win the dice roll. However, if you lose the dice battle, one of your already placed volunteers from the state you are trying to move to control the opponent's state will be removed from the board and placed in the volunteer reserve pile. Campaign rules. You can only campaign in states that border states you control. This rule does not apply to Hawaii and Alaska. A minimum of 2 volunteers must be in the states that you control. Announce the state in which you would like to win the electoral college votes from your opponent. You and your opponent will battle for electoral college votes in a dice battle game. You, the challenger, can decide if you would like to roll 3 dice. If you roll 3 dice, you are challenging to a debate. You will be able to move 4 or more players at once to the chosen state if you win the dice roll. If you, the challenger, decide to battle them in a media campaign, you will roll 2 dice and you can move 3 volunteers if you win. If you, the challenger, decide to battle your opponent in a social media battle, you can roll 1 dice. and you may move 2 volunteers into the state if you win the dice roll. If you lose any of the above dice battles, one of your already placed volunteers from the state you are trying to move from gets placed in the volunteer reserve pile. The challenger can continue to challenge the opponent until they have no more players they can move. The opponent who currently controls the state will battle in this way. The state will roll 1 or 2 dice depending on how many volunteers occupy the state to try and keep the electoral college votes for that state. 2 or more volunteers in the state, if they have 2 or more volunteers in their state, they will roll 2 dice. If they have 1 volunteer in the state, they will roll 1 die. If the person who controls the state loses the dice battle, they must remove 1 volunteer into their team volunteer reserve pile. If the person who controls the state loses all of their volunteers, the battle is over and the campaigning person wins that state. Gameplay will continue in this way with each team taking turns as described above. You will continue to battle until one team or the other has won 270 electoral college votes. And that is how you play the game. Enjoy.